Hey people. Hello friends. So the theme, if I may call it that, of the last couple days has been this observation of mine that I, like in situations where I feel like I'm somehow either in conflict or in an argument or in some sort of situation where it's like I feel like I'm being undervalued. What happens often is that I'll rehearse my argument for why I actually do deserve X, or why I really shouldn't be treated like X, or any of a number of different permutations of this kind of like, I'm insisting on my value here in just about that tone of voice, if you really want a little insight into my inner thoughts. That process, right, I've been discussing that for a day or two now, like that process of essentially rehearsing the argument that we imagine having with someone else, right? Hope I'm not the only person to be doing this. But so that tendency and what leads me into that, what leads me to those thoughts, how I get there, and what it's about, and really sort of how it works, how it kind of what function that process is serving, has been the subject of my reflection for the last couple days. And today, something new came through on that topic, and it loosely amounts to a recognition that whenever I'm rehearsing an argument in my head, right, to take that example, what I'm really doing is I'm affirming the level of value that limited level of value that doesn't feel that it deserves better, basically. Now, I'm going to say that again, then I'm going to explain what I mean. Whenever I'm rehearsing an argument in my head in which I am vehemently insisting upon my value to some other person, or in the context of some situation, circumstance, whenever I'm going through the motions internally of insisting that I'm worth more than this, what I'm really doing is affirming that I'm not that I don't deserve it, that I'm not there, that my value is not that. Now let me explain why I say that. Those thoughts, the addictiveness of those thoughts, I was talking about this a little bit in my post yesterday. The reason those thoughts are addictive, right? If you've ever noticed, when you're rehearsing an argument in your head with someone else, it's very hard to stop. Even if you win the argument, it's very hard to stop continuing the argument. I win the argument in every sentence, all the time. You should hear me. In my internal arguments with other people, whew, do I give them a licking. I whoop them good. I'm so right in my position, so just unequivocally, it's like I'm like the superhero. I'm the superhero of arguing. There's no defeating my argument. It's ironclad. But what I'm really doing is I'm feeding an addiction to the level of value that doesn't believe it deserves more. Because if I were feeding the part of myself that knows that it deserves more, which there is that part of myself too, if I were feeding that healthy and that part of myself that's at peace and at ease with my actual value, there would be no reason to invest a bunch of emotion in a circular argument that never ends, that never really progresses, that never concludes, and that doesn't go anywhere. It's an energetic investment in an emotional feeling that I want to feel internally, that I continually fail to feel. That's why I'm going through that argument in my mind. I'm doing it because I'm hoping for an emotional result that never comes. The only way to get that emotional result is to actually claim my value in the world. When I do that, all my interest in pouring my energy and time and psychic awareness into a circular argument for a kind of emotional payoff goes away. I don't want to do that anymore. There's no reason to do that anymore, because now I'm just sitting in the truth of my actual value. So what I'm really doing when I'm rehearsing those thoughts is I'm avoiding the real world circumstance in which that claim, that action of claiming value would take place. I'm avoiding doing the things in the world, the actual things that would assert and establish and defend my actual value. Why would I do such a seemingly neurotic thing? Well, think about it. In my mind, I can rehearse my greatness. I can affirm my value all I want without ever subjecting that to the scrutiny of anything outside myself. If I go outside myself, if I actually, maybe confront the person that I'm arguing with in my head, or step into the circumstances that I feel in conflict with and assert what I feel is my position ought to be, well, now there's risk. Now I'm taking that value that value claim, and I'm putting it in the world. I'm putting it into relationship. I have to put my money down on it. In other words, it's not just, I'm not permitted to just rehearse the emotional feeling of righteousness for what I internally declare to myself should be true, without ever hearing a reflection on that, without actually putting it up against the world and seeing what the world says. That's the risk of taking of genuinely claiming our value, is that we don't just do it in our own home, in our own mind. We do it in the world. So this is all that leads me back to what I was originally saying. As long as I'm doing that internal argument thing, as long as I'm running that loop, running that movie, watching that movie in my mind of how amazingly right I am in this argument, how amazingly wrong the other person is, what I'm really doing is I'm avoiding taking the risk of putting this in the world. I'm avoiding, because that instantly stops that emotion. If you come upon a situation where you actually have to do that, actually go, if the person all of a sudden showed up and said, "Hey, I hear you have this thought about this. What do you think now?" Immediately, if I just imagine, immediately my energy settles and I get real about what I believe. Doesn't mean that the value that I'm claiming in that rehearsed, overblown sort of circular argument isn't real value. Doesn't mean that I'm wrong. It just means that the action, the emotional action and the psychological action of claiming our value in the world, in relationship to other people and an actual external reality, is a completely different animal than just running a pep talk or a fight talk in our mind. And as long as we're doing that one, we're avoiding the other one. So this is the kind of amazing thing that I've discovered from this. It's like, what's the risk of externalizing that value claim? What's the risk of putting that up against the evidence of the world or a relationship and making that claim? Well, the risk is, what if I'm wrong? What if I actually don't have that value? What if I'm actually, what if I'm wrong? So, in other words, we have to actually believe that we have this value. We have to actually believe in our own value enough to take the risk of putting it out in the world. Again, coming around, so when we're running the angry tape, I'm just going to call it the angry tape. You can call yours whatever you want. Mine is the angry tape. When I'm running the angry tape, what I'm really doing is I'm like a boxer who's in the the warm-up room, like punching all the bags and just beating. There's a speed bag and the heavy bag, and I'm just punching stuff. But I will not step foot in the ring. I'll think about what I'm going to do to my opponent. It's like I have the whole fight in my mind, but I will never step in the ring. And when you step in the ring, that attitude goes, that emotion goes, that whole posture goes, because now it's real. Now we're making that value claim in the context of reality. So this is what's been coming through for me. This is what's showing up around this, and it's a pattern that I've had for a long time. And interestingly, the way that I've been in practice, what this means is I was sitting in meditation, and in meditation, the work is stay with the breath, stay present, connect to something present moment, something like the breath, the body, physical sensations, because those things are inherently present moment. If our focus is on our breath, the sensations of our breath, we can't not be in the present moment, because those things are happening in the present moment. It's like taking our awareness, which can travel to the past and the future and the cosmos and everywhere, and saying, here, in this body, in this moment, here's where we're going. Then a thought catches me, and I dive for it, and I grab hold of it, and I think those angry thoughts, and I play that angry tape, and I'm going to get him, and see that, I got him, look at all the punches I'm landing. What I'm doing is I'm avoiding the present moment. I'm avoiding reality. So I get seduced by the thought, and then, thinking, okay, come back, present moment. And I get sucked in again, right? So that's the process. That's the sort of like, in practice, meditation is literally the art, the art and science and practice of distinguishing between reality and non-reality. It's the practice of distinguishing between reality and non-reality, and non-reality is seductive. Non-reality grabs us. Non-reality really can sink its teeth in and hold on tight. But ultimately, it's empty. Ultimately, that's empty. There's no victory there. There's no progress there. There's no success there. Success happens in the ring. Success happens in the world. Success happens when we step out and actually claim our value. And there's a whole lot less heated emotion. And I mean, not necessarily, I suppose, but but my experience is that when I take the step, or even simply get serious about taking the step of claiming my actual value, all the bullshit drains away. And it's like, okay, now let me get real. Let me look at this for real. What do I really, how am I going to manifest this value? What would that look like? It gets specific, it gets grounded, and it gets real. So, where I am today, folks. I love you. Thanks for watching. Hope this is helpful. Please, as always, send me comments or questions. I love hearing from you. I love this conversation. So much love. I'll see you tomorrow.